Hello, and welcome to the latest webinar in our International Education and School series this spring. And our topic for today is International Schools Embracing Change and Regional Ecosystems, the Admissions and Communication Perspective. And with me, I have today a very distinguished panel who have plenty of insights for you. And that is Cynthia Davis-Hall, Director of Admissions and Advancement, American School of Milan, Michaela Seeger, Director of Community Relations, Zurich International School, and Kate Deplas, External Relations Director of Marymount, Paris. So welcome, everybody. It's lovely to see you all today. And I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation, taking the admissions and communication perspective, and extremely valuable for our audience of parents, employers, and of course all the myriad of relocation and global mobility support providers who enable their moves. So let's just have an introduction from you all to explain how you managed to be in such lovely countries with such wonderful schools. So if I can start with you, Cynthia, how did you come to be in Milan?
Yes, well, I'm actually very new to Milan. I arrived here in September. And I'm delighted to be here. I spent 8 years prior to coming to Milan as the Director of Advancement at 2 international schools in Africa. And then prior to that, I also was on the board of an international school in the United States, as well as working in several museums. So I'm delighted to be here.
Brilliant. And we'll come back to you in a minute to learn a bit more about the school. Michaela, tell us how you happen to be in Zurich.
Well, thank you so much, Fiona. I've been associated with Zurich for quite a few years. My association started in 2002 when my youngest son joined Zurich International School, and he graduated in 2007. And because of him, I really learned what an amazing school it is and the difference it makes in the lives of children. And that was one of the reasons why I joined the leadership team in 2010. And I am now, or since then, responsible for community relations, which looks after advancement, fundraising, communication, alumni, and the admission. And it's a job that is absolutely fascinating because I can connect with different stakeholders all the time.
Thank you. And Kate, can you give us a little bit about your background, please?
So I was a child also of an expat, so moved from the UK to the US when I was a teenager, and then back to the UK. And actually have a legal background and worked for many years in the private sector before entering higher education, a little bit by default, and then starting working at Marymount almost 8 years ago now. So absolutely fell in love with the whole model of international education. I have 2 children here now.
And perhaps you could also tell us a bit about the school, the size, the number of pupils and the curriculums, and then we'll catch up with Michaela and Cynthia to explain the same.
So Marymount Paris is the oldest international school in France. We were founded in 1923, which I think makes us the oldest international school in the world, actually. We're part of a network. So there are 19 RSHM schools across the globe. We were founded by a very progressive congregation of Catholic sisters called the Religious of the Sacred Heart of Mary, who are now sort of headquartered in New York in Tarrytown. And today we offer an international standards-based curriculum to children aged between 2 and 14, coming from all over the world, speaking over 35 different languages. And we're based on a beautiful historical campus in Neuilly-sur-Seine, which is very close to the center of Paris. I can see La Défense on one side and the Eiffel Tower on the other side.
Wonderful. Michaela.
Zurich International School was founded in 1963 as the American International School of Zurich. And today we have 1,200 students from the age of 3 to 18 on one of our 3 age-appropriate campuses. For us, one of the most important things as a school is that we would like our students to learn the right balance. And what does that mean? Our students have to learn the love of learning, because if they know how to, if we've instilled with them a love of learning, that it's something that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. And it's a habit for them that they will open new doors. And our curriculum challenges them to explore new subjects, to explore new opportunities without extinguishing the love of learning. We introduce them to a wide variety of activities to help them discover unexpected lifelong passions. In the upper school, our students can take the IB diploma course or advanced placement courses.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, Cynthia, can you give us a description of your school, please? I understand it's quite large and in a fantastic location.
Yes, thank you. So the International School of Milan began in 1962 with 17 students in downtown Milan. We quickly outgrew that, and we were very lucky to have been given a 9-acre campus a little bit south of the city in the late 70s, and so we moved here. It's a beautiful campus, very spacious. We're at the end of a cul-de-sac, so it's very safe. And we have wonderful fields around us and a beautiful campus that is very open, which is rather unique for most schools in Milan that are still downtown. We have currently 850 students, and we have a program that starts from 3 years old and goes all the way up to 12th grade. We are accredited by the Middle States Association and CIS. And our last 2 years are for the diploma program, where all students follow the IB program in those 2 grades. We have a fantastic community that is very strong. It's one of our main focuses is to build students as lifelong learners, very similar to Zurich. And we have many students that pre-COVID were able to also do a lot in the community, and that's something that we hold dear to our school as well. So there you have it.
Thank you very much. So we've got a very nice mix of different schools, but with all seem to have a very strong ethos and some excellent facilities and a spread of curriculums. So Cynthia, if I might start with you when we start to tease out this question around admissions and communication and how things have developed over the COVID period. So if I can start with you then, beyond the technology, what changes have international schools made which will stay long after, we hope, this pandemic fades away, and why?
That's a very good question, especially in light of today being the 1-year anniversary that so many of us are looking back on and reflecting on. The World Health Organization a year ago announced that this was a worldwide pandemic. We had already gone into lockdown. We were the first country, as most people know, that was so badly hit, particularly around here in Lombardia. We were the first school to go online, and we did that within 24 hours. It was amazing. We had, our school had been on vacation. Everybody came back, and literally on Tuesday, everybody was online. Little did they know they were online for 17 weeks. It was a long stretch. We are facing once again now the same lockdown. We've had our students on campus. It's been wonderful all year. And now once again, we're having a third wave. So this idea of, okay, what is going to really remain? What is really important beyond technology? We all now know how to use the technology. Thank heavens we have the technology for so many reasons. But what is also coming out to be more important, we find, is the relationship building and how to do that, how to preserve that, how to make sure that students are still able to do that when they're online and can't see their other schoolmates on a daily basis. How can teachers maintain those kind of relationships? I will say that, so we've been back online for a week, and the feedback from the students is, we know now how to do this. We know how to be better at this. And the teachers are feeling the same thing. So I think a lot of what we're coming away with is how to be better at maintaining relationships and communities within now this very seemingly plastic environment or not real environment of the virtual life. And we're learning that, and that has been very important.
Fascinating. Michaela, what's your perspective on this?
One of our key drivers for our education is character education. And in the character education, we would like our students to learn to become more resilient and also reflective and open-minded. And I think during this past year, especially resilience and open-mindedness have been characteristics that we've seen the importance of these characteristics more and more. The students had to learn how to be agile, how to adapt to the new environment, and the teachers did always support this. But at the same time, I think our community has also come a lot closer together, and here I mean our worldwide community. We did a Zoom call with our alums in December, and you should have been there. It was absolutely incredible because a teacher who had left us in the 1960s connected with a student from that time. We had somebody who joined us from Australia. It was those connections that all of a sudden they would have not been possible in person. And we managed through new ways of communicating to keeping the whole community even closer and offer new opportunities for everybody involved.
That's really fascinating. And I've heard similar things from other schools around the world as well. Kate, what's been your experience?
So we, like many other schools, went through an incredible transformation in a very short period of time where we had to go into remote learning, and staff and children learnt sort of skills with technology almost overnight that they probably didn't know they had. And we witnessed how quickly we can learn these new skills and adapt to the new environment, which is challenging. And I think this idea that the virtual world can be less enticing than the real world is certainly true. We've really tried to use the technology differently and turn the challenge into an opportunity. So, for example, we have a student leadership retreat every year that's usually a physical retreat. We have 19 schools in our network, so it's a wonderful opportunity for all these children to come together and learn around the idea of service learning and international citizenship. And of course, we couldn't do that. What we were able to do was an online conference with the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates and give our children access to fabulous speakers all over the world. So it actually ended up improving the experience overall. And I think, using the technology in a way to add value to learning is going to be something that international schools will have to do more and more of this. I see many, many opportunities with regards to expanding the types of learning children can have access to, because it's affordable, it's quick, it crosses borders. We can travel very quickly now with all of this fantastic technology. So we're envisaging the idea that we might be able to offer classes to children that we've never done before, and they can be in a classroom with children from different cities. Certainly, I think too, when you look at international schools and the mobility of children and how often they have to change from one establishment to another, there's a lot of potential to improve the transition by making it gentler, keeping them connected with teachers that have helped them, certainly for children who have particular inclusion needs as well, filling those gaps really. So I think that international education is just going to improve with all of this. It certainly won't ever be the same.
And would anybody like to add anything? I know we had a little chat yesterday, Cynthia, and we were talking about the actual admissions procedures, which you felt were fairly the same, but you felt that the connections were somehow stronger.
Yes, I'm seeing that the connections, there's so many families, as Kate was talking, that are international families that are moving, but their mobility has been impacted by the recent events of COVID. And so what we're finding is that there's a lot more flexibility and adaptability that we need to have in our admissions process as families go through their own transition, or maybe not, maybe they have to suddenly pull back. And so I think that's something that's very important for schools, international schools, to recognize that need to be flexible in the admissions department as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Michaela, over to you for what's a very important question, because a lot of our audience, the expatriate families, are coming via corporate employers. Do you think there are new demands coming from businesses and organisations with relation to admissions in international schools?
Well, what Cynthia just said, I think the world is moving a lot faster. What we definitely have to be able to do, we have to act a lot faster than we used in the past. And we really have to understand what our stakeholders want. We started at Zurich International School, we started 18 months ago with a survey of all of our different stakeholders, which resulted in a new strategic plan. And that strategic plan will put a lot more, one of the things the strategic plan does is will put a lot more emphasis on German. So let me explain. Here it says German has always been a core part of our program. But what our parents now want and our corporate partners now want, they would like an even stronger level of German language so that the students and the families can better integrate into the local community. They would like that the families, that they move out of the bubble and really have connections and a good relationship. And for us, this also meant that we have started to offer, or that we will start to offer, a new bilingual program for for students in kindergarten. It is for those families that are looking for more academic German. In our regular program, we will have different tracks and students can move between beginners, novice to fluent speakers. But if you really want to stay in Switzerland and would like to have an academic language, a bilingual program is a really, really good option. And it's also a way for the families that come to have a soft landing. And that's something that all of our corporate partners are looking for as well. They would like to see when their employees come over that it's a soft landing, not just for the children, but for the entire family. And we have started this program in order to support families as well as the students. And another part is also that we are now starting to have closer relationships with the corporate partners, where it used to be very transactional. We now started internship programs with them, and we are now also asking the corporate partners to come into our school to give talks to our students, so that the corporate partners can also position themselves as a future employer. So that relationship has become a lot more mutual beneficial than transactional, how it was in the past.
So it sounds as if this ecosystem we mentioned in the title is expanding, or has expanded over this period. Kate, would you like to add anything to Michaela's comments?
So certainly here in Paris, the relationship that schools have with companies is very important. I think the challenge is often, particularly now that companies are allocating smaller budgets towards education, there are many more families moving on to local contracts. So the mobility environment's changed a lot. And particularly in Paris with recent events with Brexit, the market's really flooded now with international education options, and helping families and employees sift through that noise and understand what the differences are, understand what the educational market is like, is something we're doing more and more of. So I found that actually Zoom's been great because I can have these conversations far more easily than in the past. I think for parents, it's far less committal to sign on to a Google Meet or a Zoom and have a conversation with someone than actually physically come and visit. And we find that more and more we're doing sort of education consulting because we're explaining, you know, what is an accredited school. We're also accredited by CIS. That doesn't often resonate with families who've never moved before. So that's important because it's, you know, it's about safety at the end of the day. So certainly, I think that, and that goes hand in hand with the notion of learning the language of the host country, which is really, really important. And in an international school, it's a challenge because bilingual education for a child who is half French is not the same for a child who doesn't speak French at all. And so having options available, like Michaela was explaining, you know, after school activities in French, differentiated French classes. We follow the French national curriculum for children who speak French so that they can keep up with their French level. And all of that for companies is really vital because as you said, we need to provide a soft landing for the whole family if that child is going to be happy and learn.
And Cynthia, are you finding that there are more Italian families coming back to Italy, and why is this?
Yes, I am finding that I think more international Italian families, as I call them, are coming back. We at ASM, we have always had a very strong Italian language program to be able to support the Italians who are coming from Milan, for instance, and would like to take the state exams and make sure that they maintain that for themselves as they go into university. So we've always done that, always differentiated between those native speakers of Italian and then the students that are arriving who would like to learn some Italian. What I have started to, and again, because I'm relatively new here, but I'm seeing a lot of what I call the international Italians coming back to Milan or coming to Milan. And these are families that have students that have never studied in Italy and have only ever been in international English curriculum schools. And so that's a wonderful challenge to bring these students in. They feel most comfortable in an academic environment such as ours. And but they will also want to maintain their Italian at the same time. So yes, and we're also working a lot more with relocation agencies and HR directors in companies. I see them also reaching out more to us this year, which is interesting.
And what about the sort of lengths of stay that people are coming on international assignment?
Can I maybe add on to this, because of what Cynthia said. So when we did our strategic plan, we saw 3 very clear target groups or customer groups. One is the traditional expat that will come, stay for 2 to 3 years and then leave again. The second group is the long-term expat. That's somebody who will stay for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. And as Kate said before, and then maybe even be put onto a local contract. And the third group is what we call the Swiss global parents, the ones that Cynthia mentioned beforehand. And all of these 3 different groups do have different needs, and we have to work with them in very different ways. There's similarities, but they also have very different needs.
And we seem to be picking up through various surveys and reports that there are international people who are moving around the world and looking specifically for a country where they may settle their families because of the education as being one of the main attractions. So are you Are you finding that? Do you know that people are looking for Italy of choice, France of choice, and indeed Europe?
Yes,
Yeah.
if I may jump in here, yes, I have had conversations with several families who are, both parents, for instance, are Italian, but they've lived abroad and had their children abroad in schools for forever, but they've decided to move back to Italy and to settle in the Milan area because of educational opportunities.
Right, thank you. So if I can move on to Kate now. I think for many years, international schools have been seen as sort of setting the bar high in terms of the education they provide and potentially the leaders in education. Do you think that's a position that international schools still hold, and is that likely to continue in the future?
Yes. Certainly, I think there are real concrete reasons why international schools are leading. We're very flexible environments because we're independent, so we can make decisions that directly have an impact on teaching and learning, and we can implement those decisions and usually have the resources to do so very quickly. And that was fairly evident, I think, with COVID-19, when we had to go into remote learning settings. And you cannot apply the same schema to remote learning than to on-site learning. So that requires reactivity, it requires training, it requires technology, and that's not necessarily very easy if you have to apply that to a national scale. It can be very bureaucratic. So that's something where we were able to react very quickly. The downside sometimes of this flexibility is that can be a little disconcerting perhaps for parents. And so the fact that we have this accreditation process in place to provide, if you like, a structure around which parents can have some confidence that what we're doing is also within best practices is very important. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin. International schools are melting pots, and you walk into a classroom and the children have, all of them have a different profile, and they are therefore developing skills not only through a standards-based international curriculum that incorporates global issues and the idea of solving real-world problems, but by their interactions with each other, the communication skills that they're developing on a daily basis, the language skills, the approaches to communicating in a multicultural environment are skills that are very difficult to learn when you're an adult. And I think that these children are so much more well equipped to deal with a future that's going to be more and more like that, particularly when you see how work is changing because of remote working conditions. Suddenly the borders have dissolved, and that's going to make the work environment far more competitive for our children in the future. So those skills will become far more valuable, certainly. And I think when you look at the type of differentiation that we're able to provide in a school, because we have small class sizes, because our teachers get trained with the best practices from around the world, because we have space, because of our philosophy, but also because we practice what we preach, means that those idiosyncratic brains that are sometimes perhaps not exploited enough to solve some of the problems in the world that we're seeing right now are being harnessed in ways that perhaps they weren't harnessed before. And I think that inclusion and differentiation on the educational platform now is going to have a big impact on how we meet those challenges of the future.
Great, thank you. Now, would anybody else like to chip in here on leadership in international schools? And just a comment that there are huge numbers of international schools around the world, and a lot of growth, particularly in Asia and the Middle East, but not so many in Europe. Do you think that's going to change? Cynthia, do you want to comment on that and maybe share some other?
Yes. Happy to. I think it is changing. I think there are more international schools that are coming, certainly with the name and the title of them. We see this in Milano. This certainly has happened here. But I'd also like to go back to what Kate said, because I loved so much of what she said. It is exactly what families are looking for in an international school. They want that diversity for their children, even if they themselves did not grow up that way. They really value the experiences and that global mindedness that international schools bring to their students, that is so key for their future, their own, and the professions that they are going to, their professions that they're going to go into. So it is exactly what we're getting from parents who come to us and asking for.
Thank you. And Michaela, you've told us a bit about your new strategy, which sounds fascinating, but also schools like yours have strong links with other schools in Europe via things like sporting and drama. Can you explain how that helps build this sense of a global mindedness and a diversity of thought?
Let me tell you a story. So our sports teams travel all over the world, well, all over Europe, travel all over Europe for competitions. And when my son was at the school, he traveled to Prague and had one of the most amazing experiences because the family hosted them. They gave so many feedback. They gave him a lot of feedback. They gave him support. And he came back and said, you know what, Mom, I would like parents like this. And then about 6 months later, it was the new school year, he traveled to Munich, and by chance, he was hosted again by that same family. And out of this, a really, really nice relationship has started. And, you know, so that's what it means to be in an international school with all different international schools, be it because of sport, be it because of theater. A lot of different connections start, and even relationships. And on an academic level, we always have exchange with the other schools to see what is best practice in curriculum, to see how for our own professional development. Our teachers go to the European Council of International Schools, to their different training sessions. People come to us. So there's a lot of collaboration between the schools for students, but also for teachers and for people in the role like Cynthia, Kate, and me. We regularly meet for professional development and see what is best practice and how can we best support the students and the families in our sector.
Thank you. So perhaps as we draw to a close, you'd like to share with us what you think are the sort of hopes of the future and how your schools are going to contribute that. And so over to you. Who would like to start? Cynthia? Oh.
I'll start also by echoing what Michaela just said. I think the collaboration between our schools is extremely important. And that is one of the huge benefits and keeps us as leaders as well. And so I think that is something that we definitely need to continue to provide not only for our students, but for our faculty and staff.
Students, where do they go? All around the world?
Our students who graduate, yes. Actually, a lot of them they stayed in Europe. A lot of our graduates stay in Europe. And then we also have a good majority that go to Canada and to the United States as well. So, yes.
And Kate, I know when we were preparing for this session, you felt very strongly about the importance of well-being and health. Do you want to include that perhaps in your summary of where schools are going in the future?
Sure. I think that, I mean, we talk a lot about well-being, and we have to unpack that a little bit sometimes to understand what it really means. That we actually have a well-being curriculum now, so it's teachers are trained and we're teaching the children, and a lot of this is about life skills. In an environment where there's so much diversity, which is very rich, I think it's important too that we're helping children, and this is part of well-being, but it's also part of the way all of the adults in an environment function with children like this, is to help them identify who they are in the world without feeling like their own identity is diluted in all this diversity. And approaches to learning, understanding their own brains and how their brains function and what their contribution to society can be is really important, because children need to self-navigate. We saw that with remote learning. They had to really be independent about their educational experience, and that's just going to continue. And with that comes quite a lot of fear. I think parents find that stressful, and international schools are very, very good at providing physical safety, emotional safety, intellectual safety, because we differentiate so much, and that's very important. But we also have to teach the children how to take risks, how to build resilience, how to be ethical in these decisions that they're going to have to make to deal with the challenges of the real world. And I think that's where international schools are really going to have the edge in the future.
Thank you very much. A lot of extra things for people to be thinking about. And of course, we'd love people to write in and get in touch with what their views are. Michaela, what are your thoughts of where the future is heading?
As we are now in the situation where knowledge has become a commodity, education has to change, and the way how students learn has to change. So what we have to teach our students is to be agile and to be able to react to whatever comes. We have to teach them the skills of collaboration, community, critical thinking, innovation, and also creativity. And last but not least, how to be really good contributing citizens of the world. We hope that for all of our students, that they can make a difference in the organizations and in the communities to which they go and when they leave us. So it is more than just, learning the traditional way of how I learned when I was in school. We've moved ahead, and it is really, it's like to echo, what Kate said, what Cynthia says. We would like to educate students for a world that is unknown, for a world with challenges, and that they're prepared for that, and where they can definitely also make a difference.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Very profound comments there. I'm sure parents and employers will be thrilled to get in touch with you all. Can you perhaps just summarise what's the best means of finding out more? I know you all have excellent websites. Michaela, what's the best way of perhaps families who haven't thought about an international school before getting in touch? And what do they need to have available?
I would say is really get in touch with our admissions team. Go to our website and just ask for a one-to-one talk. Our admissions team is always very ready, to listen to your needs, see what you're looking for, and see if we are the school that can deliver that. It's so much also about the best fit. So go onto our website, zs.ch, and just have a talk with the admissions team, and I look forward to getting to know many of you in the future.
What advice do you give to parents?
Absolutely. If you go to our website, you can fill out a quick form to schedule what we call an admissions consultation. And as Michaela said, it's really about the right fit. So we often start the conversation with looking at the market and what are the different options available, because our goal always, and I think Cynthia and Michaela would agree, is to put the child first. And all the adults in the room have to be able to do that. And schools like ours do that, because we are schools that believe in education.
Thank you. And Cynthia, thank you very much for raising this issue and inviting us to talk about the change in regional ecosystems and how admissions and communications were responding to that. So finally, is there any comment that you would like to make and to perhaps encourage people to get more involved with international education?
Yes, thank you very much, Fiona, also for putting this together, and also for my colleagues, Michaela and Kate. This was wonderful opportunity to do this all together. Yes, I would say, as far as getting in touch with the American School of Milan, it's also through our website. Please do take a look at that. We have an extensive pages on our admissions, and so you can find out a lot of information there, and you can also send an inquiry where we can set up a time to talk. It is very much about the right fit. I agree with Michaela and Kate. It's about what who your child is, and what is best for your child. So I hope this has been very informative for people who have been watching, and that they will consider taking a look at an international school that is near them or where we are.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to all of you for your great amount of knowledge and insight, and a lot of information there for people to pick and choose from. So I hope everyone will think of getting in touch and finding out more. So thank you very much for your contribution, and we hope to speak to you again later on. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
So with us today has been Cynthia Davis-Hall, and here are her details: Michaela Seeger, and also Kate Deplace of Marymount International School, Paris. So thank you very much for joining us. There are more webinars coming up in this spring series, and there have been a number that we've already seen on the International School of Brussels, the benefits of bilingual education for children, and a nice focus on schools in Thailand, as well as international education schools in the Netherlands and the relocation perspective. So in forthcoming webinars, we have Singapore with a highlight of the Australian International School, and coming up the Winston Churchill School in London, talking about their bilingual school and their IB diploma. There are also a number of webinars from the Autumn Fair. So altogether, we're covering lots of topics such as transition care and online learning, as well as focuses on different countries and regions. Please don't forget that the awards are now open for Think Global People and Relocate. So do consider entering, and you'll find details on our website at relocateglobal.com. Just to remind you that Relocate Global is a multimedia, and we have lots of free access resources, daily news and content, and plenty of information on education and schools throughout the year. Please do take advantage of the wealth of editorial, school feature pages and country background information on the schools fair pages, and do take advantage of these wonderful webinars, and all the speakers are also listed. So thank you very much for joining us today, and do keep checking onto the website to find out the latest on international education schools and mobility issues. Goodbye.